And welcome to the Dakota Housing Network. This is the host of the show, Joe Sheehan. I've been on sabbatical, it feels like.
All we ever heard was this disembodied voice that would call in.
Yeah, I'm actually here in studio and actually here.
Yeah,
and on the
he's
air.
here.
I'm thinking the aliens have removed the probe in your back.
Yes,
Did you find the lowest interest rates? Is what Greg and I and Jim would like to know.
They are dang low, aren't they?
Okay.
I mean, let's go ahead and get to the interest rate update and talk about what's going on in the market. From the Mortgage Market Guide and our friend Bill Bodner, mortgage bonds begin the day modestly lower, giving back yesterday's meteor gains. Basically, rates have been kind of in this sideways pattern. That's what they're talking about. Not any big changes. But they are, because basically they're waiting on the results from the Brexit or the Remain vote. Brits go to the polls today to vote on the referendum to choose whether to remain in the euro currency in Eurozone or to exit. And the latest poll shows the Remain camp has a 52% favor. And they're also asked this opinions on 1,592 people through 9 p.m. So basically the latest poll shows that there is a favor to stay.
Okay, the Clash have the answer.
You got to let me know. Should I stay or should I
52% as of 9 p.m. last night are saying stay.
They have the question. All right.
At this point, it could go either way. We will have the results because we know. I wonder if the Brits do any better job of polling than we have lately, because we haven't done a worthwhile job at all. In economic news, weekly initial jobless claims fell 18,000 to 259. Below the 273 expected. May new home sales fell 6% from April to an annual rate of 551, below the 560 expected. We're talking thousands, folks. April was revised lower to 586,000 from 619,000. The data had little impact on the bond markets because everybody's waiting for the Brexit vote. But that will have impact long term because, as we know, the Bernanke made a historical move tying interest rates to the job market way back when. And so if you want to know what interest rates are going to do, folks, pretty much all you have to do is watch the semantics or the feelings about jobs in the market. So basically the advice today, continue to advise clients to carefully float because obviously everybody's seeing negative news in the market. Negative news in the market means usually interest rates will go lower to try to stem the tide of the bad news.
Here's what I think. I think that if whichever way the Brexit vote goes, the rates will go down, because if they vote to remain, nothing's changed, so rates are still going to stay low. And if they vote to go, then everybody's going to go hog wild, and they're going to go, we got to buy the safe haven stuff, and that means our treasury will be the market. The
real stability of low interest rates is what we just talked about in the job market.
Yep.
Expected job market. And the expected job market affects consumer spending, which is affecting the home buying, which is why that's down, jobs down, people don't make as much money, people can't spend money. Even if consumers feel better, they just feel better because they feel like they're not at the door of the wolf.
Yeah.
Not that they feel like they have a great future ahead of them.
Mm-hmm. Would you not agree, Joe, that the uncertainty of it all in and of itself is probably a major factor in the way things are going right now? Just not knowing how it's going to turn out can have a major effect.
Right. So what Dave's saying is exactly right. Whatever happens with the Brexit vote, really, that's just waiting for the surprise.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a big surprise? But the bedrock of the interest rate question is in this job market. Mm-hmm. And so now, how do we respond to the job market reports and the consumer reports? We wait on the Brexit vote to see how bad it's going to be.
Yeah, okay.
And I mean, so I agree with you. I don't think there's any big surprise. What does Freddie say? What's happening with rates?
The rates, they were up, actually.
The survey says.
Freddie Mac survey, 30-year fixed rate mortgage averaged 3.56% as of ending today. That was up from last week and it averaged 3.54%. Oh my gosh.
It's a quantum leap.
A quantum leap, Greg. You are correct.
0.02 of a point.
And we're still 0.5% lower than we were 30. The 30-year was a year ago when it was 4.02.
Now rates, and then remember they do this survey. This is
Tuesday and Wednesday.
Right. And rates actually have gotten a little worse since last Thursday, but they're on floors of support, and it's a great time to to look at. One of the questions, why do we talk about interest rates and give you kind of an impact on stuff? Because we want to make sure that you know the trends so that you can make the right decision for you and your family when you're out there working with your mortgage loan officers. And right now, rates are low, and if you've got a payment that makes it work for you in your budget, it's probably a good idea to take advantage of it. Mortgage Market Guide is saying float, but they're always saying float to traders or to people like me people like Dave who have, where we might have, several $1 million of mortgages that we're playing with. But if you have something that's working for you and the payment works for you, lock it in and go
just
to sleep.
Just say the heck with it and lock it in
and go to sleep at night. I mean, they're so good. Now, one of the questions we get based on that too is how does interest rate affect affordability? And a lot of people are going, well, I should wait till house prices go down. Oh. Well, another reason why we talk about interest rates and why they're so important, folks, is because with low interest rates like this, they offset the value of homes going down. Mm-hmm. So if you wait for homes to go down but rates go up a point, you've really taken away some of that price difference anyway. And that's why we really encourage you to focus on your budget. We really focus, as long as it's a long-term decision. As long as it's a long-term decision.
I have an article I was going to go over today to that very point, and we probably will maybe talk about it when we come back. But what the effect of interest rates are on what you just described.
Let's do that. Let's do that, and then we've got Greg here, and he can talk about in terms of where the market's at and the values in our local market in regard to this. This is a good question for us in the next segment. Yeah. That basically, having a low interest rate is the same as getting a better price on the house.
That's right.
And we'll come back to the break and we'll address the article with Dave, and then we'll let Greg talk about values in the market, and so you can make the best decision you can on is it better to wait or is it better to go right now?
It's a British invasion on the Dakota Housing Network.
Right now, 64.
Here's Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons on Super Talk 1270.
There you go.
There you go.
And back with the Dakota Housing Network with the full contingent of hosts, Joe Sheehan,
Dave Floor,
Dave Larson.
There's a lot of experts in this room.
And our producer,
absolutely,
running the Pink Floyd for us.
So, Greg, what happened today? There was a day in history.
Lots of stuff. Let's start with something fun. Nick Wallenda, the great grandson of Carl Wallenda, the tightrope walker.
The tightrope guys, okay.
On this day in 2013, Nick Wallenda walked a high wire across the Grand Canyon.
Across the Grand Canyon?
Across the Grand Canyon.
Who strung the wire?
A good friend of his, I'm sure.
I hear that's harder than it looks.
Yeah, I would think so.
Well,
it's harder than I'm going to try.
I met one of them one time, the sister, Carla.
Yeah?
Yeah. In some show in Pennsylvania where she was doing the thing up on top of the pole. They get up on top of the pole and she stands up there on her nose. Oh, hello.
Hello.
I think we have gremlins in the system here. No, remember Carla Wallenda? I guess she's still around. But she was, they put her up on the pole and she spins around on her head or whatever. You're looking at me like you have no idea what I'm talking about.
I think I've seen the act. I don't remember seeing Carla do it though.
Okay. Well, anyway, there was at least one sister in the Wallendas. Okay. And there was the one that died. I think a couple of them have been killed.
There's been a bunch of them that have died.
That's why they got to have a lot of them.
That's why they got to have a big family.
Okay, well,
also today.
We got something else.
Just going to give you how quickly you can fall from grace.
Okay.
On this day in 1972, Richard Nixon signed the Title IX Act.
Title
IX Act, which he pushed, which was heralded as a huge movement in women's rights. That's the law that allowed women equal access to athletic programs in schools and colleges.
Okay.
And it's since then been expanded to include all activities. And so it was a huge move, and Richard Nixon pushed that, kind of rammed it through the Congress, signed it. On this day, a year later, 1973, Richard Nixon was conspired to obstruct justice, when he was convinced by H.R. Haldeman to tell the FBI to back off on Watergate.
Okay.
What?
He was a
goes
flawed.
up
Ultimate operation.
It
must
took.
lives are in
come
danger.
down.
He was not a crook.
He was a flawed person, but he did good things and he did
Good and
bad
bad.
things.
Good and
good and
bad.
bad.
Obviously, he got caught at the bad things.
Time to go home and rent that movie again.
All the President's Men.
So,
Yeah.
Great movie.
so question into this segment of the
Yes.
show is should you wait for prices to come down? And we cover interest rates at the beginning of every show, primarily to talk about the impact it has on your payment and whether or not. And one of the great thing about interest rates being so low for so long is that it offsets the affordability of the house. And in your monthly budget, that low interest rate, as long as you plan to own the house for a long period of time, as long as you have a long-term plan, that really is the same as getting a better deal on the house.
Yep.
And what you could see is house prices come down, but if interest rates go up, it really will offset the savings of the house price coming down. And so if you're looking at your house in terms of your budget, low interest rates is a good thing and the price is less relevant. If you're looking at your house as a security where you're trying to have instant equity or that you're going to sell it later, that becomes a different issue. Of course, we don't encourage people to do that with their home. If you're doing it with an investment property, that you maybe want to look at that differently. Yeah. But in terms of your home, your lifestyle, we mostly encourage you to look at, can you pay the payment? Does it fit your lifestyle? Is it good?
Yeah.
So
and the truth is that's going to happen anyway.
Yep.
You're going to gain equity in your home. So,
over the long term.
Yeah, over the long term. So it remains a good investment, but you're correct. That shouldn't be the prime factor for buying your personal home.
Yeah. And so Dave, you've got an article that's specifically on this
I was
topic.
going to talk about an article here from Housing Wire, but it was based on a piece that was written by Ben Carlson at Ritholtz Wealth Management, talking about, now is a great time to be a home buyer. He had three reasons why it is, but one of them was mortgage rates being low. And he was putting into perspective when we talk about historically low interest rates. We obviously talked about that for how many years now, right? Mm-hmm. Historically low interest rates.
2009?
Yeah.
Moving on a decade.
So here's what Mr. Carlson did. He took today's median home value, $296,000, right? So that's a little bit higher than it is here in North Dakota, but it's close, okay? Current mortgage rates, he used 3.63%. Probably took the Freddie Mac number from a couple weeks ago or something. The monthly payment for principal and interest would come out to $1,349 a month. That same mortgage at 1991 interest rate levels would have cost you more than 3 times as much, or your principal and interest payment would have been $4,136 a month. Your money goes much further today than at any time in the past 40 years. So if you bought your house back in 1981 and had those rates were probably 14, 15, 16% back in 81, and you kept that loan for 30 years, you paid it off now, and you never refinanced, you paid a lot of interest. Now, what he also goes on to say is, today, and we had a couple weeks ago, we had a lady from Shirley Glass from the Bank of North Dakota talking about student loan refinancing and stuff, and people talk about the student loan crisis, and we've talked about it on here and how that affects people buying a home. But he says, if you take a look at this, he said, his idea is, I'm guessing that the savings that we get right now from the lower interest rates dwarf what those costs really are. I mean, if you want to buy a house, interest rates are lower, you can refinance, at least in North Dakota, you can go out and refinance your student loan debt at a very low rate. So really, what are you? Are you better off now than you were if you would have been, your parents were 30 years ago? Mm-hmm. It's a fair question. But certainly that difference in interest rate, I mean, where we're at now, you're able to buy a lot more house than you could have 30 years ago,
right,
and even 10 years ago.
Well, I bought my first home, just to tell you how old I am, I bought my first home in 1978.
There you go. So you predated his example here of 81.
Yep. And I paid 12% interest,
okay,
and I paid 2 points to buy it down.
Okay.
Wow, 2 points to buy it down to 12%.
And
no, how much was the cost of the home?
Well, if I were to round up, back then it was a $89,000 house.
Okay.
Today it's $250,000.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
So that's how much equity was built.
So
But,
pretty close.
but
Example here.
back then, when the interest rates were that high, it was, I have this much to spend. And the interest is going to be in there, but all I can worry about is my payments. Tell me what house I can buy for my payments.
Mm-hmm.
And we bought a lot less house than we could have because the interest payment was such a big part of the loan payment. And of course, our attitude was, well, we can deduct that, so it all comes out in the wash. But we did not buy, and we're not able to buy as much house as you can today on that same budget.
Yeah.
Well, speak to that and we may have to cover this in the next segment as well. But in your opinion, house prices coming down. People who are thinking, I'm going to wait till house prices come down. What is the reality of that in terms of the actual numbers and what the market activity is?
I actually have those numbers. The brief answer is yes and no. If you're going to buy over a $500,000 house, you might want to wait. They're probably going to continue to come down a little bit. If you're Joe average buyer, 350 or less, they're not coming down. They haven't.
What is the
Year to
median
date, they're the same.
Are they
What is the
stabilizing?
median
About
price
235 in Bismarck-Mandan.
locally? Okay. Okay, so if you're 350 or less is the number, is
Yeah.
where you guys are seeing
Yeah,
really no price adjustments at all.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have a very large market now. It's shrinking, which is good because we had, an inventory of almost a year based on the number of people who buy an expensive house and how many are on the market. We had a year's worth of inventory
Of the over 350,000.
of the 500. Yeah,
Okay,
right.
all right.
That number is shrinking, which is good and it's healthy for everyone. But
Well, that'll help drive prices back up.
Yeah, under that, prices are stable. They're appreciating slightly, not like they were a few years ago, which is healthy, which is good. Unless something changes drastically in the state's income, house prices are not going to. They're going to level off. I don't see a scenario where they're going to come down.
Okay. So is most of the activity locally here in Bismarck-Mandan below that 350?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So why wouldn't home prices come down? I mean, if oil continues, we have a decline, and say we just don't keep drilling for new oil, the rig count doesn't go up, that sort of thing. Why wouldn't prices come down?
Well, a couple of reasons. One, the value is there. Secondly, if oil prices stay low and we have a major issue over a 1 or a 2 year period, it's not going to affect home prices as much as it's going to affect volume of homes sold. People will just sit. People will wait.
Okay.
There will be some real bargains to be found, but that's going to be rare.
Somebody might have to sell their home.
The
because they
market
gotta
won't
move.
crash. It will slow.
Yeah.
We should at some point we should get the Badlands Board of Realtors on
We can do that.
and ask them about the direct impact to the western markets right in Watford City and Dickinson, and whether or not what they're seeing buyers
I think it's interesting.
buyers do versus reality.
We've seen with our program with the first-time home buyers, we've had an increase in business in Dickinson and Williston and Minot.
Well, we should talk about that when we come back from the break
Yeah.
with the Dakota Housing Network after the break
We need shelter
and the news headlines.
from the Brexit. We
You
need
gotta have shelter in North Dakota.
Right now, 64.
On Twitter, Facebook, online, and YouTube.
Literally.
SuperTalk1270.com.
Literally everywhere. You can
I-
find us everywhere. Facebook, Twitter. It's like the whole world.
When the levee breaks, Led Zeppelin. I hope the Brexit doesn't break the levee. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna find out.
And Led Zeppelin, they're in the news.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
A little trouble with Stairway to
A
Heaven.
little something there. That's like their third go-around with this, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
So-
they settled on like Whole Lot of Love and the Lemon Song and stuff, I guess,
Yeah.
with other. Jimmy Page just too much stuff going through his head. He just writes, that's cool. I don't think I've heard that before.
Right.
I don't know. But they wanted like a third of the songwriting. This guy that's suing him
Yeah.
from Spirit only wants, the family wants a third of the songwriting credits. And then they said, well, okay, so how much is that going to be? And then, how do you figure that out?
Who knows?
Yeah.
How much money has that song made?
Oh,
Well, especially if you're going to go back
millions.
for it. Oh, my God.
Yeah, I mean, that's a 40-year-old song, 45-year-old.
Yeah, and that doesn't count every time it's played for a commercial
And
or
it's
it's
just-
played as a.
Just one riff in the song, right?
Yeah, it's just the beginning. So the rest of the song, so how, how.
So you
what
have
can
to break down
get?
the whole value based on just that. And wait a minute, is that the riff that makes the money? You start
Yeah, I don't
arguing
know.
that.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows the old, you hear that,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
Stairway to Heaven. But then the rest of the song is kind of epic too.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I don't know. You
Bit of
know.
decency in that rest of that song, too.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so
okay.
talking, we were talking actually about should you wait, and we just started
Mm-hmm.
getting onto the west end of the state, and we were saying maybe it'd be a good idea to talk to the Badland Board of Realtors and see whether or not the impact of what they're seeing is does it make sense to wait till house prices come down, because in your budget, really probably the most important thing is the interest rate, and with interest rates at all-time lows, you really would be hard pressed to wait because a higher interest rate offsets prices coming down anyway. So,
right.
And Dave, you were just talking about the activity for North Dakota housing in the west
Yeah.
end of the state.
And I'll go with the Dickinson area. And we have on our board, we have a realtor from Dickinson, Ninetta Wandler. And,
Great gal.
And she, so obviously we talked about this at a meeting with her. And she said it's really, it's slowed down from what it was. It's kind of what you've said here too, Greg. Okay, it's slowed down from what it was, which was just absolutely nuts out there. And she said if you look back at it, it's about like it was like 6 years ago, which is fine. She said that's great. She said there's more homes on the market. The prices have stopped climbing, but she said it seems like people are taking the opportunity now to put their house on the market because they figure they can sell it. Well, it was almost before like they could sell it, but where am I going to buy something?
Yeah, sell it and do what?
Yeah, exactly. She said now, so they feel comfortable that, well, okay, I can sell my house and then buy something else in town, or now is the time for me to move somewhere else in the area or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
She said, so it seems like the market's just kind of gone back to what it was, which is okay for them. And,
Well, and the prices stabilizing gives an opportunity for people who weren't confident
Well,
they could go and compete
yeah,
to
I mean,
get in the market.
I haven't bought a house before, and I'm living in Dickinson. I've got a good job. I feel good about it. I don't expect to get laid off or anything. I'm not drilling an oil well.
But I work for a hospital, or
I feel good about my
I
job.
manage a retail store.
Now, I don't feel like I'm buying an overpriced house. I'm buying something that's okay. That's the market. That's reasonable. I can afford it, et cetera. So now I'm going to go buy a house.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think it has a calming. If it's a calming effect on prospective home buyers, they just feel better about it because I'm not overpaying. And I think that's a fear of everybody's. I don't want to overpay for a house.
And
right?
it changes the builders' focus too. Whereas the builders were, building more and more and more and more expensive homes. Now they can you'll have builders that'll focus back down to those affordable limits more.
Yeah.
Well, and the builders are probably I don't know this for a fact, but I would suspect that they're putting a house up. They're probably not getting as much profit on
Right.
each house. They say instead of making this much because I built this house for this much, but
Now I
I
wanna
can
move
price
it.
it up here.
Then I want to
Yeah.
But I can still build that house and still make money on it. But I'm only getting this much profit, which is okay with me.
I was in that business. You need to understand also home builders, and we've talked with Dot about this. Out of a 10-year cycle, they make big money 2 years. They make a decent profit 3 years, and the other 5 they just hold on.
Okay, yeah.
So you can't fault them for when there's a chance to make the money,
Right.
making the money, because half the time they're just holding on.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No. I think that that's good perspective. That activity is still strong in those markets, which means that homes are selling. Maybe home prices aren't appreciating. Maybe there's been a slight decline, but that's not necessarily for year over year. Probably still quite a bit of appreciation in relationship to where things were at
Right.
5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
The great thing about the Bismarck market and the advantage that we have right here in this town is that the energy sector is important, but one of 5 really big sectors, and you have government really leading the way, and the state government, local, with combination of the Morton County, Burleigh County, and the state government. Really, those are big sectors. You have healthcare. And you want to, if you ever really want to understand or get more information about how the local economy works, tune in to Brian Ritter's Brian Ritter's hosting the show.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody does a better job of or knows more. Call in, ask him questions. If there's anything you want to know, the man knows it about the local economy, and he'll break down where agriculture, which is like number one in the state, still is the number one driver for the economy in the state, still doesn't show up in the Bismarck economy till like number 3.
Yeah.
And energy is pulling anchor at number 4 or 5. I mean, it doesn't even make the top 3 in terms of what drives the Bismarck economy.
Well, I just heard this past weekend driving back to Bismarck, news on the radio. Apparently, Bobcat is laid off people in Gwinner, which is bad, obviously for a smaller community. But the jobs are moving to the Bismarck plant.
Yeah.
And they're actually going to have more jobs in Bismarck than they had in Gwinner.
Yeah.
So they're adding.
There's actually a net add. There's a net gain for North Dakota. For North Dakota, there's a net gain. Gwinner loses.
No, unfortunate for the folks in Gwinner because it's a smaller town. Bismarck absorbed when Bobcat moved out of here. 5-6 years ago, when they closed the plant there, that was a hit, but it wasn't as bad in Bismarck as it would be in Gwinner. And now the reverse is happening.
And I understand that the Gwinner folks who are going to be laid off have first shot at the jobs in Bismarck. So
they can move. They keep the jobs.
Yeah, so Bobcat's not saying see you later.
No.
They're saying this is where we have to go.
You got a chance. Yeah. And that's the exact reverse of what happened before.
Yeah.
Is the folks in Bismarck had the shot at the jobs in Gwinner when they moved there. And if you're from Gwinner, small town, you don't want to move to Bismarck. You understand that, and that's going to be tough.
But see, if the new if I can get somebody to run with and sponsor the legislation I want in the next thing, it's going to be a good thing to move here because.
Why are you looking at me?
Well, what I'm looking at is that for every new bank that opens, a new brew pub has to open. And see, so
that is a great idea.
I'm proposing a minimum ratio. If the state has to subsidize us to get if the state has to subsidize us to get those brew pubs up to the right ratios because there's so many banks in town, I'm telling you, whatever has to happen, but that's going to make this, I think, a fairly tolerable place to live.
Is Greg's wife going to sponsor that legislation?
Can we get Diane on that?
We could have her on the air and ask.
Okay. Diane, if you're listening, call in.
Yeah, because we'd like to get somebody to sponsor legislation for a minimum brew pub ratio to banks.
Are you going for a 1-to-1?
Well, I think you always want to start big.
Okay.
And I think if we wound up with a 50% ratio, even that would probably lead the nation.
Okay.
I mean, I would probably put us right with Milwaukee.
50% banks to brew pubs.
Yes. No. Yeah. Yes. That's thinking big, my friend.
That's big. Come on.
That's now I've just been exposed as being a limited thinker.
There you go.
Well, nobody's going to accuse me of being an expansive thinker, so I don't know what we got here.
That's great. 50% banks to brew pubs. Yeah. That's right.
So we got some new news on the use of drones in real estate that we can talk about next section.
Let's go for a flight of
who wants to talk about drones?
After you come borrow the money or draw the money out of your ATM at the bank and spend a lot of time at the brew pub, maybe it's time to fly your drone and take some pictures.
There we go.
Oh, that would be fun, wouldn't it? Okay.
That I feel all kinds of new laws coming on in the next decade.
Okay.
There's going to be all kinds of liabilities and new laws.
Diane might want to think about thinking this through before she sponsors the brew pub legislation.
Yeah, maybe tag.
Because they both we have alliteration because it's brews B and banks B. That's going to make for a great title.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The B&B.
Yeah. The bank brewing.
Yeah,
legislation.
The bank and brew legislation.
Yeah, the bank and brew.
It's like Air B, right? Or Air and B. Air bed and breakfast thing.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, this could be the brew and bank thing.
I think Jim's throwing us off the air for a break.
No, not at all. Not at all.
All right. Well, we do have to talk about going to a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what is it? We're going to talk about the drones. Drones in real estate. Oh my God, we're not talking about just the boring people.
No.
Like us.
Money, that's what I want.
After the break.
The best things in life are free.
Right Now 64.
Dave Ramsey is heard here. Super Talk 1270.
And we are back with the Dakota Housing Network. Joe Sheehan.
Dave Floor.
Greg Larson.
It's a sunny afternoon, according to the Kinks.
What the? And it probably is.
It is
It's
a
been- we had
sunny,
nice
it'll be a
weather.
sunny afternoon today.
We had some nice weather.
And here we sit.
Okay, so what are we doing now? We're going to
We're
talk
talking
about
about drones.
right?
Yeah.
And we're not talking about the
Okay. And real
boring
estate.
people like us in real estate.
No. Well, drones are a big deal because of the photography, and there's all kinds of issues, and they need to settle it. It has been illegal to use a drone for commercial use in marketing.
Yeah.
Well, the FAA has had a lot of pressure on this, and National Association of Realtors has been involved in it. And so now they're just starting to release the rules and regulations that will allow you to use drones to take photographs of the houses you're selling and that sort of thing. But it's going to be tricky. There have been some folks, and a couple of guys in Bismarck got all excited about it and got their drones and did some, and then found out, oops.
Oh.
So now there's a couple folks that have permits.
Is this how these pictures of me in a Speedo wound up on the internet?
No, I think
Am I
that
back
was
here?
that neighbor
You
of
said
yours.
we weren't supposed to mention
Weren't
that.
those selfies?
Oh.
Yes, they are my drone selfies.
Yes. So anyway, you can now use a drone.
Okay.
But you can't cross anybody else's property
Oh, well, that's interesting.
without written permission.
Okay.
You can't show.
This isn't like a captain in the Air Force flying this thing.
And you can't show in your photographs anybody else's property without written permission.
Okay.
You
From the
can't-
NFL?
Yeah.
You have to have written.
Yeah.
For the NFL, Roger Goodell is going to police this.
Rebroadcasting.
Yeah.
Rebroadcasting this, yeah. And you can't, what's the other? You can't go so high, you can't go so far, you can't lose sight of the drone. You have to have full sight of the drone at all times.
Is your average everyday drone equipped for this?
I don't know. Well, in order to use it commercially, you have to be a pilot.
Well, okay.
Oh, you have to be a
You
pilot.
have to be a pilot-y person. Yeah.
Do you have to have a pilot's
Yes.
license?
At this point.
Okay.
Now, they're working on a recertification where you don't have to be a pilot, but you
Okay.
got to get certified in drone operation.
Right.
Well, I mean, that makes
So
some sense.
I have
but
one realtor in town who's a good friend of mine who is a pilot, who has been watching this because he wants to use drones in his business.
Sure.
And he's thinking, he's watching this pretty closely. So if you're listening, buddy, here it is. You can do it. Just make sure you know what you can't do because it's bigger than what you can
We
do.
talk about this a lot on the Monday Tech Show.
Monday Tech Show, yeah?
With Marlo.
Yeah. So anyway, they've just lightened this up, and realtors are jumping all over it. But there's been some really, well, why can't I do this? I'm doing it, and they get caught, and the fines have been huge.
no,
huge.
This,
Well, I'm
this
just
is the FAA
even-
you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Even if you
They're
don't,
thinking I broke a real estate law, and they're going to give me a $500 fine and say, go and sin no more. And no, it's a several $1,000 fine and loss of pilot's license or
Not a slap
Well,
on the wrist with a
no,
Yeah, you're not
But-
dealing with
but-
the real
but-
estate commission here.
no.
Yeah.
But here's the other side of this whole drone picture thing. That just there's been kind of a sense of backyard privacy, just in general.
Yep.
That that we've all kind of grown up with. That you can build a fence a certain height, and outside of building it next to somebody that has more stories than you do, there's a sense that you have what happens in your backyard is kind of in your backyard. And I'm not trying to be too indecent here, but I'm just even talking about just your sense of decorum around maybe your own pool. And of course that's not a big deal here.
Yeah.
But like places like Arizona,
Yeah.
California,
L.A.
L.A. There might be a sense that a person might not be fully clothed sunbathing in your own backyard next to
With
your
the
own
high
pool.
walls.
Well, now all of a sudden you got drones flying all over taking real estate pictures.
that's-
Now granted, the picture's not usable
Yeah.
to
But they've
the
got
public,
Yeah.
but it's still
Yeah.
somebody's seen you
Yeah.
or has
Yeah, and those are the restrictions. And
even
so
even on camera, just even if the person doesn't take a picture,
that's why
the idea that you can, it's a kind of a peeping Tom.
Well,
all of a
it
sudden.
is,
you're
and that's why
flying-
the deal is you got to have written permission to fly over, take pictures of if you do that and it gets out anyway, you are in violation, and there are big fines.
You have to have written permission to fly over it at all, or to
And
use
to
the
take
images.
pictures and use images.
Okay, but say I'm selling my house, okay, and and Greg, you're my realtor, and you're flying the drone around, and you're flying it on my property, and your camera, I assume the cameras aren't locked into one spot. They've got to be able to rotate, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you just happen to rotate your camera over to the neighbor
Who's taking a
and
shower
give
with
an
the window
example
open.
of what Joe just talked
poor
about.
Mrs. Smith is just thinking she's just going to avoid her tan lines in her own
she's-
privacy of her own backyard.
Yeah, and I guess she may have heard the drone,
But might not imagine it's equipped with
or think of it.
video.
Okay, I got headphones on. I'm sitting there listening to music, right? I don't hear it. So now, Greg, you have a picture of
Or
the
at least,
neighbor.
or
And
you even saw
but-
her
Yeah.
without her knowledge. That
Yeah.
you've actually
you
seen
saw
her.
her.
You've
So
actually
it's
seen her.
It's still
without her
invasion of
knowledge.
privacy. It's
Sure,
still
yeah.
peeping Tom.
So you know what I propose? Shoot the drone first law.
yeah.
You can
And that's against the law, too.
you
What
can
if
shoot the drone out of the sky if it's over your property line and no questions
Look
asked.
that way. Boom.
There's just a lot.
What if you catch somebody committing a crime? The exact scenario we're talking about.
And you're
just
guilty
happen
of
to
the
be
law
flying
at the
over.
same time.
Can it be admitted into court? That's the first question, I guess. Can they use it? I don't know.
Or if they don't,
Well,
use
you're
it,
not
is
going
it
to turn it in
obstruction of
because
justice?
you're not going to turn it in because you broke the law getting the material.
They're probably going to have to go to court and set a precedent to figure out how they're going to handle that kind of thing. It's going to, it's going to happen.
Oh my!
So these drone
I love these new
pictures
problems.
of camera,
I love these new problems.
drone pictures of houses are really impressive.
Yeah, it's cool.
They are.
They really are, and so it's going to
I've
get
seen 'em.
used,
Yeah.
but it's going to be it's going to take a while to kind of work it out. Be very, very careful, but you're going to see them, and it's kind of neat.
So we're talking about this example where you'd see the neighbor's backyard and everything.
Yeah.
But really where this could be useful is where you've got a mansion with a lot of space around it. And
Absolutely.
you're flying
ranches
and stuff where you're flying, and you want to be able to show this thing in its best light to somebody from out of state that's going to buy this. You can say, here, this is what this place looks like from the air, and that's really where this could be useful. It's not in most of Bismarck. You guys probably aren't going to do it because the houses are too close. But if you're out in the country,
well, the one I've seen a couple of them. One I saw was done in Florida, and it was a zoom in on this house it was a beach home, so it came off the ocean.
Yeah,
Zoomed in on this house, went up, went aerial,
turned
and
around,
scanned
took
it,
the
turned
view
around,
out to the Gulf.
It was impressive. It's like, okay, I got to have that house, and I've seen a guy locally who did that just with his home. He lives on the river, and he just did the drone and did that thing with his home, and his home is very nice, but it's a Bismarck home.
Yeah.
But even that was spectacular. I mean, it really could market the house.
Yeah,
well.
it's just where can you? Is the property going to
Exactly.
Are you going to be safe as the operator?
Yeah.
As the realtor, I can easily fly in and do my thing with this and not really have to worry about the law of invading
and
somebody else's privacy.
I can see a secondary service grow out of this, where someone else will take that responsibility. You pay them to take the pictures of your listing.
They manage it. They're professionals.
If it's
That's all
wrong,
they do.
it's on them.
Yep, it's all they do. They do it all day.
Yeah.
I can totally see that.
Yeah.
Well, and like our point to bring up the question isn't that we're against this at all. It's just amazing how the new ideas, and one of the things with the increasing advancement of technology that is juxtaposed to that and is going to be an issue is privacy.
Yeah.
I mean, just no matter where we turn.
Are you entitled to any
every day?
privacy?
Every day you open up a new technology, there's a question of your privacy and these privacy disclosures. I mean, who every time you download an app, who reads that?
Yeah.
I agree. You hit the I agree button and you get 40 pages of disclosure about. You have no idea what you're signing up for.
Yeah.
To use some of these simple apps.
Yep, just today we got an alert from the Bismarck-Mandan Board of Realtors, beware what you share, talking about 7 safety tips on how to protect yourself.
I got that,
From the email. One of them, and this is to anybody, do not open or reply to any email addressed to Yahoo user.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
But, like with mortgage now, there's the CFPB, our favorite agency, is looking to do the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act update, where they're asking for more information on home loans. Well, people are saying, well, that's too much, but really, when you download an app and stuff and you're on Facebook, how much information does Facebook have on you? Way more than you're going to get from a mortgage app.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's it for us on the Dakota Housing Network and with our full contingent of hosts.
Next week, we have a guest, Jennifer Henderson from my office.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about multifamily next week, primarily.
And the week after that, I think we're probably going to try to get someone from Badlands since we talked
that
about
sounds
it.
good.
Great. Hey, lots to look forward to here on the Dakota Housing Network. Have a great week. It's always partly sunny here.